Trucks carrying aid and fuel cross Egypt's Rafah into Gaza amid ongoing restrictions. The Arab League is holding an emergency session to address Israeli occupation crimes. And the White House may invite Ukrainian President Zelensky to Alaska for Trump's planned meeting with Putin. These were the headlines. Now the news in detail, and we move on to the latest developments in Gaza. Trucks carrying aid and fuel crossed from Egypt's Rafah into Gaza, continuing efforts to deliver humanitarian assistance amid ongoing restrictions. According to Amal Imam, executive director of the Egyptian Red Crescent, about 14,500 tons of aid have entered Gaza since Israel agreed on July 27th to allow more deliveries. Of nearly 1,000 trucks that crossed the border, 800 have reached their destinations in Gaza, she said. However, some trucks have been delayed due to Israeli restrictions on certain products. The Italian Ministry of Defense humanitarian mission Solidarity Path Operation 2 has conducted its first airdrop of essential supplies over remote areas of the Gaza Strip. Departing from the Jordanian base in Zarqa, Italian military aircraft delivered aid to some of the most hard-to-reach locations. Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto emphasized Italy's commitment to both immediate relief and ongoing political efforts towards a lasting ceasefire based on the principle of two states. The mission is part of the larger Levante operation involving Italy's armed forces, with more airdrops planned until all donated aid is distributed. The Arab League is currently holding an extraordinary session to discuss urgent measures against ongoing Israeli occupation crimes. The meeting, called at the request of Palestine and supported by member states, focuses on halting violence in Gaza, preventing forced displacement, and holding perpetrators accountable through international justice. Delegates are also addressing the humanitarian crisis, including starvation, destruction of refugee camps, settlement expansion, and recent escalations in the West Bank and Al-Aqsa Mosque area. The United Nations is holding an Emergency Security Council session today to discuss developments on the ground in the Gaza Strip, particularly following the Israeli government's approval of a new military plan to take control of the territory. The plan includes expanding operations across multiple areas and issuing evacuation orders to residents in various locations, according to Israel's Public Broadcasting Authority. This session was requested by the United Kingdom, Denmark, France, Greece and Slovenia, and later received support from several other countries, including Russia, China, Algeria and Pakistan. The United States is the only member of the Council that has not expressed support for holding the meeting. The death toll from the Israeli assault on Gaza Strip has risen to 61,430, with 153,213 injuries since October 7, 2023. The Palestinian Ministry of Health said that since March 18, when Israel resumed its assault on the Strip following a ceasefire agreement, there have been 9,921 deaths and 41,172 injuries. It added that in the past 24 hours alone, 61 people, including 2 whose bodies were recovered, and 363 injuries individuals arrived at hospitals in this strip. The Palestinian sports community mourns the deaths of 2 soccer players killed by Israeli forces in Gaza. Mu'athala al-Hawajri of Al-Nusayrat club died while waiting for humanitarian aid, and Nasrallah al-Muqatiyya of Deir al-Balah club was also targeted. The Palestinian Football Association said the toll of players and football community members killed since October 7, 2023 has risen to 325, highlighting the widespread impact on Palestinian sports. Gaza faces mass casualties, collapsing healthcare, severe shortages, and looming Israeli occupation plans as protests erupt in Israel against escalating the devastating war. Foreign ministers from 5 European countries issued a joint statement condemning Israel's recent decisions regarding control over Gaza City, warning that these actions will worsen the situation and further escalate tensions in the region. The foreign ministers of Germany, Italy, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand said in the statement that the Israeli Security Cabinet's decision issued last Friday will exacerbate the humanitarian disaster in the Gaza Strip. They pointed out that the decision threatens the lives of detainees and also escalates the mass displacement of Gaza's civilian population. Five people, including 2 children, died in the past 24 hours due to starvation and malnutrition in the Gaza Strip. The Palestinian news agency reported that the death toll from famine and malnutrition in Gaza has risen to 217, including 100 children. Families of Israeli soldiers captured in the Gaza Strip have announced a full economic strike next Sunday in response to the Security Cabinet's decision to prepare for the occupation of Gaza City, which they say could endanger the captives' lives. Speaking at a press conference outside the Israeli Ministry of Defense in Tel Aviv, the families said on August 17th, starting at 7 a.m., we will shut down the country to save the soldiers and hostages under the slogan, "Silence kills, we are shutting down to the country to save the hostages and soldiers.
Dear President Trump, I'm an American citizen, and so was my son Ben Zussman, who was killed in a battle.
Israeli peace activists disrupted a live television broadcast last night to protest the escalation of the war on Gaza. During a voting segment on the program Big Brother, several young people wearing white T-shirts with the slogan "Leave Gaza" jumped onto the stage and staged a sit-in. The activists repeatedly chanted, "The people demand stop the fire," as security guards carried them away. The organization Standing Together, which campaigns for peace between Israelis and Palestinians, claimed responsibility for the protests. Several European cities, including Stockholm, Amsterdam and Pristina, witnessed massive demonstrations denouncing the genocide and famine facing Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and calling for an end to the Israeli assault. Protesters condemned the Israeli government plans to occupy Gaza and displace its residents. Swedish activist Sienna Medar described what is happening in the Strip as the most horrific thing she has seen in her life, criticizing her government's silence and calling for sanctions on Israel. Speakers also criticized the continued support of Western governments for Israel despite the massacre and starvation in Gaza, and urged the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice to take urgent action to end the war and open humanitarian corridors. The UN Relief and Workers Agency, the UNRWA, confirmed that Israeli forces continue the heavy bombardment of the Gaza Strip and are expanding their ground operations, resulting in deaths, injuries, destruction of civilian infrastructure and the displacement of large numbers of residents. The UN agency explained that civilians are living in inhumane conditions, seeking shelter whatever they can, including in damaged and destroyed buildings, overcrowded shelters and open areas. Thousands of pro-Palestinian demonstrators filled the streets of Istanbul protesting Israel's ongoing war in Gaza and calling for an end to the bloodshed. Earlier in the day, Turkey's foreign minister urged Muslim nations to unite in opposing Israel's latest military plans to seize full control of Gaza City. Speaking from Egypt, he confirmed full coordination with Cairo and said the Organization of the Islamic Cooperation had been called to an emergency meeting. Thousands have marched in solidarity with Palestinians, condemning Israel's military action in Gaza and calling for urgent international response. Protesters banged pots and chanted "Stop the genocide," urging governments to sever ties with Israel. Among them were human rights activists and people of Palestinian heritage. Demonstrations come as global outrage grows over the worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where nearly 2 million people have faced repeated displacement in the last 22 months. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has threatened to call for early elections in protest against Thursday's Security Cabinet decision to take full control of Gaza City, saying the move is not enough. According to Israel's public broadcasting authorities, Smotrich made the threat during last Thursday's cabinet meeting, telling Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, "As far as I am concerned, we can stop everything and leave the decision to the people." U.S. network CNN criticized Israel's plan to occupy the Gaza Strip, saying that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is pleasing no one with the plan except himself. The network said that the Israeli Security Cabinet's vote to expand military operations and seize Gaza City on a plan proposed and pushed by Netanyahu himself reveals more about his internal political maneuvering than about any comprehensive military strategy. The Israeli army reported today that sirens were activated in the Gaza envelope area. In a brief post on its official page on the X platform, the army said the matter is under investigation. Meanwhile, Yeda'ut Ahronot newspaper reported that sirens were heard in the settlements of Nahal Oz, Kafr, Gaza and Saad following the launch of several rockets and shells. And for further analysis, we now move to Mark Summers in our newsroom. To you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Mona. Yes, we're now joined from Cairo by the writer and political researcher, Ahmed Maharam. Thank you very much for being here with us on Q News. I'm going to come to the UN Security Council meeting in just a moment. But first of all, how do you view today's Arab League meeting discussing Israel's decision to reoccupy Gaza?
Well, after regards, I think it is not the first time, and unfortunately, it will not be the least. Usually, years ago, months ago, weeks ago, and on daily basis, what we have seen through the media, it makes actually the matter is very complicated. Security Council is supposed to do an effort. The General Assembly is supposed to do the same. General Secretary Antonio Guterres have done the best of what he can do, but I think America itself, what is the green line or green activity given to Benjamin Netanyahu is doing exactly. There is a confusion of what we can understand. Are America driving Israel or the opposite? I think it seems like Israel is exactly doing what the American administration are trying to do in the area. The matter of pushing the Palestinians to be somewhere else, it seems like it's going to be fact. So many conferences, so many dialogues, so many reports. I think, unfortunately, it sounds like nobody is listening. If the United Nations itself has to do a role, the role is America. If America would like to do, and if it can do, but it seems like the administration of President Trump has to think about what is the future of the area.
Yes, you mentioned America being the important player in all this, but of course we have the UN. And they are meeting today. Should we expect any decisions from the Security Council meeting regarding Gaza?
Well, I put my voice with hundreds of thousands and millions of people. They hope that something can come out of that. But America is trying to push the United Nations for a different difficulties. I mean, President Trump, he pulled from different negotiations. World Health Organization, he pulled U.S. aid around the world. Now he's talking about the contribution, financial contribution of America to the United Nations will be less than supposed to be. America is a part of like 40% of the capacity, of course, of United Nations. If this amount of money will be less than that, that means there is no consideration. And we hear a few years ago that other countries like I think Switzerland and maybe some other country in Europe are offering Germany, Switzerland and Germany are offering the United Nations. They can come over there, they can have the place, and the governments of those countries are really ready to pay all the costs of the employees. So America is going to be in danger if it will continue like that.
Now, do you think there's any chance that it's possible to reach an agreement to stop the war in Gaza before Israel starts its plan to reoccupy the Gaza Strip?
Well,
the Gaza City, rather.
I guess so many times different efforts from the region and from the international. There's so many European countries now are not exactly on the favor to be following what America is trying to do. I hope so but it sounds like it's going to be very, very difficult.
And what is your opinion on the decision by the families of the detainees in Gaza to shut down Israel next Sunday? Do you think this kind of pressure might have any effect at all on Netanyahu?
I think these kind of pressure have been since 22 months. Every Saturday, there is 100,000 of people are struggling to do the same. But I don't think that Benjamin Netanyahu is listening. He is doing what he would like to do. He doesn't want to face what he's supposed to face if the war will be over. He doesn't want to continue. He would like to continue the war even in different areas, Lebanon, Syria, whatsoever.
Well, thank you very much, Ahmed Muharrem, joining us from Cairo, the writer and political researcher. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here on Q News. And it's back to you, Mona, in the studio.
Thank you so much, Mark, for the analysis. And back to our bulletin. The UK has announced an additional 8.5 million sterlings in humanitarian support for Gaza to be delivered through the UN's OCHA Humanitarian Fund. Minister for International Development Jenny Chapman called on Israel to allow aid to enter Gaza freely and urged all parties to return to a ceasefire to end the suffering and secure detainee releases. This funding aims to provide vital food, water and fuel to the areas most in need. The UK is the largest donor to the OCHA Fund in 2025 and remains committed to supporting both humanitarian relief and Palestinian development efforts in the occupied Palestinian territories.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين. الوضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
The Lebanese army announced the death of 6 of its soldiers due to an explosion that occurred while inspecting a weapons depot in the south of the country. In a statement, the Lebanese army said that during the inspection and dismantling of the contents of a weapon storage site in Wadi Zabqeen, Tair, an explosion occurred inside, resulting in a preliminary toll of 6 soldiers killed and others wounded. The Israeli army fired incendiary shells near 2 towns in southern Lebanon, setting fires in the latest violations of the ceasefire agreement in place since late 2024. The Lebanese news agency reported that Israel targeted the area around Rimaya and Beit Leaf, located in Bint Jbeil district of Nabateya Governorate, with artillery fire using incendiary shells, causing fires in the surrounding forests. Lebanese Foreign Minister and Expatriates Affairs Minister Youssef El-Raji expressed his condolences for the soldiers who were killed in southern Lebanon while performing their national duty in the 3rd District. Youssef El-Raji wrote on the social media platform X, "All mercy to the martyrs of the Lebanese army and speedy recovery to the wounded. Your sacrifices protect Lebanon and its sovereignty." U.S. envoy to Lebanon Thomas Barak expressed his condolences for the Lebanese army martyrs following the explosion in Tair today that killed 6 soldiers and injured others during the inspection and dismantling of a weapons depot in Wadi Zabqeen, Tair. In a condolences message sent to Lebanese President Joseph Aoun, Barak stated that on behalf of U.S. President Donald Trump and the American people, he extended his deepest sympathies to the Lebanese president, the families of the victims, and the people of Lebanon over the tragic loss of members of the Lebanese armed forces.
We're still trying to calm the waters. It's still very dangerous.
The Saudi Ministry of Foreign Affairs expressed the kingdom's sincere condolences to Lebanon following the death and injury of several Lebanese army members while performing their duties in southern Lebanon. Saudi Arabia extended its sympathies and condolences to the families of the victims and expressed solidarity with the Lebanese government and people. It also praised the efforts of the army to uphold the Lebanese government's sovereignty over the entire country, ensuring its security and stability and contributing to the prosperity of Lebanon and its brotherly people. The White House is considering inviting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to Alaska, where President Donald Trump plans to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin. While no invitation has been finalized, U.S. officials say a trilateral summit remains a possibility and express hope it will happen. The White House is currently focused on planning the Trump-Putin bilateral meeting, with no official comment from Kiev yet. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has expressed strong support for a joint statement by European leaders calling for a fair end to the war in Ukraine, while safeguarding both Ukrainian and European security interests. In a message on Telegram, Zelensky thanked those standing with Ukraine in pursuit of peace, saying the end of the war must be fair, defending the vital security interests of our European nations. The statement issued Saturday was signed by key European figures including French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Major European leaders have emphasized that the future of peace in Ukraine must involve Kiev directly, with negotiations contingent on a ceasefire or reduction in hostilities. In a joint statement, the leaders of Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Finland, and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen stressed the importance of combining active diplomacy with continued military and financial support to Ukraine. They said the current line of contact should be the starting point of negotiations, underscoring Ukraine's sovereignty and right to choose its own destiny. European leaders reaffirmed their commitment to Ukraine's territorial integrity and security, warning that any diplomatic solution must protect vital Ukrainian and European interests. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that recent talks with Western security officials were constructive, emphasizing that peace must be negotiated together with Ukraine. He called for an immediate lasting ceasefire and warned that Russia's Putin is using violence to pressure for occupation. Zelensky expressed full support for U.S. President Trump's plan to meet Putin on August 15th to discuss ending the war. Zelensky stressed that Ukraine's role is key in any peace deal and rejected delays on partial pauses in fighting. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here is what we've been covering. Trucks carrying aid and fuel cross from Egypt, Rafah into Gaza amid ongoing restrictions. The Arab League is holding an emergency session to address Israeli occupation crimes. And the White House may invite Ukrainian President Zelensky to Alaska for Trump's planned meeting with Putin. Well, this concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEGY to stay informed. Many thanks for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.